Hello and thanks for joining me on the news. We begin with prisoners swapped for greener to contest election. Ukraine counter-offensive getting hotter. Israeli airstrikes in Jenin kills 5. Yellen to visit China in mission to boost ties, and Senegal opposition calls for fresh protest. Stay with me for these and more stories. In politics, according to reports, a Russian arms dealer freed in a prisoner swap for United States basketball star Brittany Griner has been chosen as the candidate for a far-right party for a seat in the Russian regional legislature. Victor Bout, once labeled the Merchant of Death, served 10 years of 25-year sentence in U.S. prisons in arms dealing charges until his release last December under the exchange with Griner, an Olympic gold medalist. According to an official in the ultra-nationalist Liberal Democratic Party of Russia's LDPR local organization, said Bout had been nominated as a candidate for the Legislative Assembly of the Ulianskaya region in central Russia. He was arrested by U.S. agents during a sting in Thailand in 2008. The U.S. Department of Justice termed him as one of the world's most prolific arms dealers. Charges Bout has always denied. Griner was sentenced in 2022 in Russia to 9 years in a penal colony for possessing vape cartridges containing cannabis oil, which is banned in Russia after a judicial process Washington considered as a sham. Griner has since resumed her sports career. Bout publicly joined the LDPR following his return to Russia. Despite its name, the LDPR holds far-right ultra-nationalist views and strongly supports President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The LDPR has earlier provided a home to Andrei Lugovai, who is wanted in the United Kingdom for the 2006 murder of ex-KGB officer and Putin critic Alexander Litvinenko. Lugovoi has served as an LDPR member of Russia's national parliament since 2007. Litvinenko died after drinking tea poisoned with polonium-210, a radioactive isotope. Talking Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine's deputy defense minister has said, describing the situation as complicated, that Ukrainian forces are fighting a brutal offensive by Russian troops in parts of northeastern Ukraine, even as they make progresses in the area around Bakhmut and in the south. Han Amalia said that Russian forces were moving towards Avdiivka, Marinka, Liman and Svatov. Russian accounts of the frontline fighting reported a success in containing Ukrainian troops in the northeast and said its forces had pushed back Ukrainian attacks near villages ringing Bakhmut and in areas further south, mainly the strategic hilltop town of Vulia. Kyiv's military has been engaged in a counter-offensive to regain areas of the east and south seized by Russian since it started its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Early Ukrainian advances have concentrated on taking back clusters of villages in the south, but have so far failed to produce a significant breakthrough. Malia said Ukrainian troops were advancing with partial success on the southern flank of Bakhmut in the east and near Berdyansk and Melitopol in the south. According to her, in the south, Ukrainian troops faced intense enemy resistance, remote mining, deploying of reserves, and were only advancing gradually. Everywhere things are hot, she said. General Alexander Tarnarsky, who is responsible for the southern front, said Ukrainian forces were systematically destroying the enemy and reported the deaths of numerous hundred Russian forces over the last 24 hours. Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian president, and Ukraine's commander-in-chief, General Valery Zaluzhny, have reported steady, if slow, gains in the campaign. The president has acknowledged the relatively limited progress, but said the fight is not a Hollywood movie with instant success. Ukraine has also had to endure persistent Russian airstrikes on cities, although the Kremlin denies attacking civilian targets. Ukrainian writer Victoria Amelina on Sunday died from wounds sustained when a Russian missile hit a busy pizza restaurant in the eastern city of Kramatorsk last week. The attack killed 12 people, some of them children, and injured dozens. Amelina's death raises the death toll to 13. With our greatest pain, we inform you that Ukrainian writer Victoria Amelina passed away on July 1st in the Mechnikov Hospital in Dnipro, PEN Ukraine said, according to reports. The 37-year-old, who was also a war crimes investigator, had been in the city with a delegation of Colombian journalists and writers, PEN said. Since 2022, she had been working to document Russian war crimes since the invasion and advocate for accountability, according to PEN. In northern occupied West Bank, Israel's military has launched air attacks on the Jenin refugee camp, carrying out an ongoing attack that involved a missile and the killing of at least 4 Palestinians, according to residents and officials. Residents said Israel launched no less than 10 air attacks in Jenin early on Monday, sending smoke rising from the wreckage of buildings. A convoy of dozens of Israeli armored vehicles also surrounded the refugee camp from all sides and launched a ground military operation, triggering heavy damage to homes and roads. The health ministry said another Palestinian, 21-year-old Mohammed Hussein, was killed overnight on Monday by the Israeli army at the northern entrance to the city of Ramallah in the central occupied West Bank. The ministry has yet to identify the 4 people killed in Jenin. At least 27 other Palestinians were injured in the camp, including 8 in dire condition. On Monday morning, the Palestinian Authority's foreign ministry said it condemns in the strongest terms the barbaric aggression of the occupation against our people in Jenin and its camp and held the Israeli government responsible. It noted that the Israeli aggression aimed defenseless civilians, including targeting ambulances, crews and health centers, depriving them of treating the injured, aiming mosques and homes and destroying infrastructure. The ministry said it calls for immediate international and American intervention to stop the aggression instantly and calls on the International Criminal Court to break its silence and start holding the Israeli war criminals accountable. On economy, the United States Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen will visit Beijing this week in the second trip by a top official in a matter of weeks as the world's 2 biggest economies try to fix trade relations. Yellen will travel to Beijing from July 6th to 9th, the U.S. Treasury Department said in a statement on Sunday. The visit was also confirmed in a statement by China's Finance Ministry on Monday morning. Yellen is anticipated to deliberate the significance for both countries to responsibly manage our relationship, communicate directly about areas of concern and work together to tackle global challenges, the Treasury Department statement said. Her visit comes just weeks after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met China's President Xi Jinping, leading diplomat Wang Yi and Foreign Minister Qin Gang in Beijing in June. Blinken was the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the Chinese capital in closely 5 years and reached an agreement with Xi to stabilize ties and make sure rivalry did not turn into conflict. China protested loudly when U.S. President Joe Biden subsequently referred to Xi as a dictator, but analysts say the remark had little effect on efforts to boost ties. In Beijing, Yellen will meet senior Chinese officials and leading U.S. firms, a Treasury official said according to a report, without going into specifics. A second administration official said Yellen was anticipated to meet with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng. One clear area of worry involved China's new national security and espionage law, which came into force on July 1st, and the potential implications for foreign and U.S. firms, the official added. Relations between the U.S. and China have declined over a range of issues, from the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic to the crackdown on the mostly Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang to trade and supply chain issues, as well as the self-ruled island of Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its own. The discovery of an alleged Chinese spy balloon flying across the U.S., which was eventually shot down, further exacerbated tensions. In Africa, Ousmane Sonko, opposition leader who was sentenced to 2 years in prison a month ago, has called on the Senegalese people to go out in masses over the next few days on the eve of an address to the nation by President Macky Sall, who is set to say whether he will stand for a 3rd term in 2024 presidential election. He declared on Sunday evening during an appearance on social media, "We must come out to confront the regime of Macky Sall and say that it will not be up to him to choose the candidates who will face each other in the next presidential election." Sonko's conviction in a vice case, which presently makes him ineligible, stoked the most serious unrest in Senegal for years in early June, leaving 16 people dead according to the authorities, 24 according to Amnesty International and 30 according to the opposition. He has continually asserted that the government is plotting to keep him out of February 2024 presidential election, but the government denies this. He has been blocked by the security forces at his home in Dakar, sequestered according to him since 28th May. Sall was elected in 2012 and re-elected in 2019. He had the constitution revised in 2016. It stipulates that no one may serve more than 2 consecutive terms. His supporters are presenting him as their candidate in 2024, arguing that the revision has reset the counters to 0. If the president does not run, it will be to better eliminate him politically and restart the judicial machine, and this is not acceptable. If he's arrested, I call on all Senegalese people to stand up as one man and go out in mass and this time put an end to the criminal regime, according to the opponent. If the president comes up, I believe it is up to all the Senegalese people to stand up and face him, he declared. If we have to fight a battle, it has to be definitive. I call for a national awakening. The days and weeks ahead will be crucial, he said. On more stories, China-Africa trade show yields positive results. The third China-African Economic and Trade Expo on the theme of common development for a shared future ended on Sunday in Shangang City with $10.3 billion worth of projects signed. The expo, guided by the spirit of the 8th FOCAC Ministerial Conference with emphasis on the 9 programs for China-Africa cooperation, and organized various events in various forms, attracting thousands of participants to Zhongshan, including Chinese and African dignitaries and diplomats, representatives of international organizations, financial institutions, business associations, chambers of commerce, and media entrepreneurs, experts, and scholars. The expo intended to improve business connections between both parties while opening the Chinese market to products made in Africa. Wang Dong, Deputy Head, Department of Western Asian and African Affairs, Chinese Ministry of Commerce, shared that the economic and trade cooperation between China and Africa has been expanding from traditional trade and engineering construction to digital, green and financial fields. In particular, the import of agricultural products from Africa shows great cooperation potential. All of these have steadily promoted the high-quality development of economic and trade cooperation between the two sides. The 4-day event has attracted over 100,000 visitors and resulted in 74 cooperative projects, a first in the Expo's 5-year history, according to statistics from the organizing committee. African visitors claim that the Chinese market has much to offer their businesses and populations. The China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo is committed to building a new mechanism for China-Africa economic and trade ties, a new platform for the implementation of economic and trade initiative, and a new window for Sino-Africa economic and trade cooperation at the subnational level. China is Africa's biggest trade partner and its 4th largest source of investment. Official data show that bilateral trade between China and Africa amounts to $282 billion in 2022. There will be more stories coming from Nigeria. Stay with us after this break. Welcome back. We begin with 2023 polls. Federal government rejects EU reports. Yesterday, the presidency rejected a report by the European Union Electoral Observer Mission on the 2023 general elections, describing it as a product of a poorly done desk job that depended profoundly on few persons. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president, said he had several reasons to believe the jaundiced report, based on the views of fewer than 50 observers, was to merely sustain the same premature denunciatory position contained in EU's preliminary report released in March. This was contained in a statement issued by Mr. Dele Aleke, Special Advisor to the President on Special Duties, Communications and Strategy, with the title, "We Reject European Union's Conclusions on 2023 General Elections." The President in the statement noted that some notable bodies such as the Nigeria Bar Association, NBA, and even the electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, had applauded the conduct and results of the election. The statement read, "Sometimes in May we alerted the nation through a press statement to the plan by a continental multilateral institution to discredit the 2023 general elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The main target was the presidential election, clearly and fairly won by the then candidate of All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. While we did not mention the name of the organization in the statement, we made it abundantly clear to Nigerians how this foreign institution had been unrelenting in its assault on the credibility of the electoral process, the sovereignty of our country, and on our ability as a people to organize ourselves. We find it preposterous and unconscionable that in this day and age, any foreign organization of whatever hue can continue to insist on its own yardstick and assessment as the only way to determine the credibility and transparency of our elections. Now that the organization has submitted what it claimed to be its final report on the elections, we can now categorically let Nigerians and the entire world know that we were not unaware of the mechanizations of the European Union to sustain its largely unfounded bias and claims on the election outcomes. For emphasis, we want to reiterate that the 2023 general elections, most especially the presidential election won by the President Bola Tinubu All Progressives Congress, were credible, peaceful, free and fair, and the best organized general elections in Nigeria since 1999, according to the statement. The statement said that there was no substantial evidence by the EU or any foreign body that was viable enough to discredit the outcome of the polls. Investors gain in 30 days boosts economy. Nigeria equities have gained 4.34 trillion in net capital increases in the past 5 weeks. The market report, now generally referred to as Tinubu, followed a record-setting rally stoked by the investor-friendly stance of President Bola Tinubu's administration. Official trading reports and global stock market indices at the weekend revealed that Nigeria has jumped numerous steps over the past 5 weeks to become one of the world's 3 best performing markets. Nigeria's benchmark equities index reached a 15-year high in a sustained bullish run driven by an increase in demand from both domestic and foreign investors. There is a consensus that the performance of the Nigerian stock market is directly connected to the policy stance of the Tinubu administration. The Nigerian exchange, NGX, stated that the market performance came on the back of audacious macroeconomic reforms under the 34-day-old administration, noting that market operators were of the view that the policies of the new administration under President Tinubu had led to the rise in the fortunes of investors. The Tinubu administration, in barely a month, has given effect to the stoppage of the 46-year-old fuel subsidy, abolished the multi-forex rates, and instituted probes into major issues of public finance. In his May 29th inaugural speech, described generally as market-friendly, Tinubu addressed general issues of security, economy, infrastructure, and monetary outlook. The president also directly address investors' concerns on multiple taxations, returns to repatriation, and foreign exchange forex, amongst others. Benchmark equities indices at the NGX indicated an average return of 15.09% over 3 quarters of the equities market's 6-month return of 18.96% for the first half of 2023. The aggregate market value of all quoted equities has risen by 4.35 trillion naira over the past 5 weeks, accounting for about 82% of total net capital gains of 5.33 trillion naira in the first half of 2023. This underlined that the global top chart performance of the stock market was largely driven by the Tinubu-triggered rally. The all-share index, ASI, the value-based common index that is widely regarded as the main benchmark for the Nigerian equities market, rode on the back of a week-on-week rally to close at the weekend at 60,968.27 points, its highest since 2008. The 60,000 index mark is regarded as a psychological milestone, a major testing point for a rally. The ASI had stood at 52,973.88 points on the eve of the May 29th, 2023 swearing-in of the new president. The aggregate market value of all quoted equities, which had stood at 28.845 trillion naira at the start of the Tinubu administration, closed at 33.198 trillion naira, attaining a perfect correlation of 15.09% with the ASI. The correlation between the ASI and market value validated that the increase in market value was driven mainly by share price appreciation or real capital gains as against increases due to the primary market changes in the number of listed shares and corporate valuation, among others. The ASI and aggregate market value of quoted shares had opened in 2023 at 51,595.66 points and 28.103 trillion naira, respectively. And finally, on the news, gunmen kill pastor, church members abducted. Unknown gunmen stopped a Redeemed Christian Church of God RCCG parish in Abule Ori, Obafemi Owode local government area of Ogun State, killing the pastor and abducting 7 members of the church. Mr. Soji Gonzalo, the commander, Ogun State So Safe Corps, confirmed the incident in Abeokuta on Sunday, according to reports. Gonzalo explained that men of the Corps, however, rescued the 7 church members and killed one of the kidnappers during a rescue operation. According to a statement by the SoSafe Director of Information and Public Relations, Maruf Yusuf Gonzalo, was reported as saying that the incident occurred at 12 o'clock a.m. on Saturday. The Owode Egba Zonal Command of the Corps under Jimo Omuniyi received a distress call that some members of the RCCG Desires of Nations Parish under Ogun Province 22 Abule Ori in Obafemi Owode local government area were attacked during a vigil. The 7 members of the church were kidnapped and the pastor killed. Officers of the Corps were charged to go after the suspects to rescue the victims unhurt, and the officers swung into action immediately, he said. He revealed that the 7 victims were rescued unhurt while one of the kidnappers was killed, saying several of the suspects sustained severe injury during a fire exchange, adding that a joint team of the police and the SoSafe car were already after the fleeing kidnappers to capture them alive. The commander said that the body of the dead kidnapper had been deposited in a nearby morgue. A recap of major stories says prisoner swap for Greener to contest election. Ukraine counter-offensive getting hotter. Israeli airstrikes in Jenin kills 5. Yellen to visit China in mission to boost ties. And Senegal opposition calls for fresh protests. That's all the news. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Sureki.